Turn 3. 3 inches off the bumper, tucked into the tire track, chasing air that was never going to come. Then, nothing. No warning, no wiggle. Just a violent jolt from a car that refused to slow down. The rear end snaps loose. The wall arrives fast, and there is no time left to react. When the driver finally climbs out of the wreckage, 2 facts are already clear. The race is over, and this was not an accident. July 5, 2026, Chicagoland Speedway. Lap 48 of a scheduled 267, Shane Van Gisbergen drove into the back of Austin Hill, tipping the number 33 Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet around. Replay footage showed Van Gisbergen going deep into Turn 3 and hitting Hill squarely in the rear. The damage ended Hill's day. He finished 37th, marking his second DNF in 3 weeks after completing only 47 of the 267 scheduled laps. Austin Hill addressed the hit directly afterward. "I'm sure y'all have seen the replay, so if I have to explain it, people probably need to get glasses," Hill said. But Hill's words were not what escalated the situation. It was his own team owner's radio call that turned a routine incident into a full-blown controversy. Richard Childress, the NASCAR Hall of Fame team owner, spoke through the number 33 radio communications during the race. He said, "The hit was just payback for California." That single sentence opened the door to a backstory most fans were not fully tracking. A pattern of incidents stretching back 3 weeks. And further than that, 2 weeks before Chicagoland, at the Naval Base Coronado Street Race in San Diego, Hill slid into Van Gisbergen's teammate, Connor Zilisch, while battling for the lead. The contact sparked a multi-car crash that eliminated both Trackhouse racing drivers from postseason contention in that event. 1 week before that, at Pocono Raceway, Hill and Van Gisbergen collided again, this time exiting Turn 3 after Hill inadvertently slid up from the bottom racing groove. 3 incidents, 3 consecutive weeks. Childress did not treat the pattern lightly. "Somebody talked to NASCAR about that. That was blatant," Childress said, putting the accusation on record. Before going further into what happened next, here's something worth mentioning. This channel, NASCAR Track Report, is closing in on 500 subscribers, and every person watching right now is part of getting there. If breakdowns like this are the kind of racing coverage worth having in your feed, hitting subscribe costs nothing and helps keep this kind of reporting going. Liking the video and dropping a comment with your own take on the Hill-Van Gisbergen situation also makes a real difference in how far this story travels. Support from viewers is what allows deeper dives like this one to keep coming. Now, back to Chicagoland, because the 2 drivers involved told 2 very different stories about what happened on that track. Shane Van Gisbergen gave his account of the crash. "I was shooting for the bottom trying to get clean air. I was so tight, and he just chopped my nose and got in the wall," Van Gisbergen said. "So, sorry about that. Sorry to his guys, they're always nice people, and it happens." That version stands in direct contradiction to Childress's payback claim. One side describes an unfortunate racing incident. The other describes a calculated act of retaliation. Neither side backed down from their version. The tension had a prior chapter as well. After the San Diego incident, Van Gisbergen posted a recap video in which he referred to Hill using a pointed nickname. "2 weeks in a row taken out by the same spud," Van Gisbergen said, labeling Hill a spud for causing that earlier crash. The insult added another layer to an already heated back and forth between the 2 camps. What happened next, at Chicagoland, did not make it onto the main broadcast for most viewers. Under caution, Hill made his displeasure known in a way that went beyond words. He sideswiped Van Gisbergen's car while driving toward the garage area. Van Gisbergen described the moment over his own radio. "The fellow hit my left front. Still straight. You want me to come in and check it?" Van Gisbergen said, downplaying the damage in the moment even as the intent behind the hit became a talking point. That intent became the center of the debate. NASCAR veteran Jamie McMurray reviewed the SMT telemetry data from the incident and claimed it showed what he called undeniable proof to suggest the contact was not accidental. Daytona 500 winner Denny Hamlin went a step further, publicly suggesting the move was premeditated. 2 respected voices in the garage, both pointing toward intent rather than accident. Despite the telemetry claims and the public commentary from Hamlin and McMurray, NASCAR reviewed the incident and made its ruling. The result, no penalty for either driver. The decision came directly from NASCAR official Brad Forday, who explained the reasoning behind it. "We have a pretty consistent history of, if you say you're going to do it, and then do it, that is going to rise to the level of a penalty, Fordy said. You've removed any kind of doubt. Here, there's enough reasonable doubt where it didn't rise to the penalty for us here. That explanation did not sit well with everyone following the sport closely, especially given a precedent from earlier in the season. A prior incident between Ryan Preece and Joe Gibbs Racing's Ty Gibbs resulted in a penalty for the RFK Racing driver after radio communications confirmed intent. The comparison raises an obvious question about consistency in how these calls get made, one that remains unanswered. NASCAR is not simply letting this situation dissipate on its own. Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer has already spoken with Hill directly and plans to bring both Hill and Van Gisbergen together ahead of the next Cup Series race to address the conflict in person. The intervention signals that NASCAR views this as more than a routine rivalry. It's a situation serious enough to warrant direct mediation from series leadership, but the history between these two drivers extends much further back than the past 3 weeks. Van Gisbergen and Hill have a documented rivalry dating back more than a year. Their first clash on record took place at Circuit of the Americas in 2024 during an Xfinity Series race. Later that same year, at Sonoma, Hill pointed his middle finger out of the car window after Van Gisbergen won the race there. Van Gisbergen responded by performing a burnout next to Hill's car in celebration. The animosity between the two has been building for 2 full years, not just 3 weeks. 2 years of history. 3 crashes in 3 weeks. 0 penalties issued despite claims of intent from a Hall of Fame owner, a veteran analyst, and a championship-contending driver. And now, NASCAR itself is stepping directly into the middle of it before the situation escalates further at the next race. Whether the Chicagoland incident was justified payback for a pattern of on-track aggression, or the start of something NASCAR can no longer manage through standard post-race review, remains an open question. What is confirmed is that both drivers will be in the same room before their next race, under direct NASCAR oversight, with a rivalry that has already produced multiple wrecks, public insults, and a no-penalty ruling that some in the garage are openly questioning. If this breakdown of the Hill-Van Gisbergen rivalry gave you the full picture, drop a comment with who you think was in the wrong at Chicagoland, and share this video with another NASCAR fan who's been following this story. If you enjoy real NASCAR breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next.